All right, good morning. Welcome to the Artful Home. We're so pleased that you're all here. Just a couple of housekeeping items. If you could please turn your phones off or set them to vibrate for the duration of the program. Also, this program will go until 10:45 to give our panelists the opportunity to make it down to their respective showrooms for the 11 a.m. start time. If you have any questions or would like to meet any of the artists, please join them in their showrooms afterwards. Now I have the great pleasure to introduce our moderator, Megan Swoyer, who has a long history in publishing with many titles under the Our Media umbrella, including former editor of Detroit Design Magazine and her current role as editor of Michigan Blue. Megan is an award-winning watercolor artist and painting instructor, and her passion for art and interior design make her the perfect moderator for today's discussion exploring art's role in the home. Please join me in welcoming Megan Swoyer.
It's working? Yes. Hello? Okay. So Boswell is an internationally acclaimed, see, I don't really need my notes, but actually I do. But I do know Boswell because I've covered him over the years, and he was and still is a fabulous fashion photographer.
Thank you.
I say bonjour Boswell because he spends several weeks each year in Paris capturing its enticing elements. He's always pushing boundaries and experimenting with new subject matter. There's some of his work up there. And techniques. His works are quite popular and hang in residential and business collections across the Americas and Europe. Hello, Boswell.
Hello, Megan.
Now we will get to Val. All right. Designer and artist Valeria Zozaya is the founder of Zozaya Studio Interior Design. Raised in a creative home, both her parents were artists. She developed a love for art early on. Formally trained as an architect, which I find very interesting because she will have two different sides of the brain working, one for architecture and another for art. She approaches her work with a sense of space, form, and storytelling. Her art is shaped by international experiences, global influences, and she loves rich textures and bold color contrasts. She also does three-dimensional and also two-dimensional works, as you can see. Lori, I've known for a good while too. Hello, Lori. American photographer Lori Tennant creates otherworldly dramatic images. With a BFA from the College for Creative Studies, Tennant's interest in science and biology led her to work with botanists, I love that, and master gardeners to collect her subject matter. The work is often printed large scale on aluminum and on paper. Tennant brings attention to unusual specimens and rare endangered species. Wow, I could get hooked on those just looking at them. Often her work is displayed in botanical gardens worldwide, which is so cool, right? I'm always reading about you traveling. Yeah. Tony, met him too over the years. Everybody knows Tony from Plymouth, Michigan. His artistic journey began in the factory at Ford Motor Company, which I didn't know, and I do find that fascinating. He was at the Wayne Assembly Plant, where his talent was discovered while working on the production line. Named Ford's resident artist, Roko has since created commemorative works for the company, including, and I don't know if you've been there, but the beautiful Michigan Central Station in Detroit. So you'll see Tony's work down there. And I hear they're going to have a hotel there now too. Yeah. Neat. If you visited Jay Leno or Lady Gaga, have any of you been to their homes? You would see his work there. His bold use of color and expressive style reflect Detroit's cultural and industrial legacy. He also has works at the Charles Wright Museum and the Detroit Foundation Hotel. So, welcome.
Thanks.
All right. We're going to get right to the questions about art in the home. Now, The first question is about your inspiration. What inspires you when creating a piece that might end up in someone's home? Are you painting to sell, or are you painting for yourself? Are you thinking or visualizing on where that might end up? I know Lori, a lot of her works end up in gardens. So Lori, what do you think about this?
I never think about where it's going to be, like where it's going to hang. The work comes from just my passion about botanicals, and it could be pulling over on the side of the road and clipping something and bringing it across the border, which I've done before, and or getting something, from a botanical garden. So it's the intricacies of seeing these botanical specimens really huge that I'm always thinking about, like.
Excellent. Boswell, what do you think about when you're whipping up a beautiful painting?
Well, I'm inspired by pretty much the same things. I'm inspired by the human body. I'm inspired by architecture, nature, and beauty. So I find inspiration all around me, and I really set off to create work with intent. It's not an accident, pretty much, and I really don't think about where it's going to go. I think about what is going to make me happy as an artist, and I just like to create really impactful graphic images.
Nice. Tony?
I try not to think about that either. I think it's kind of ends up being interference, and I think that like the authenticity of just creating whatever you're passionate about. In my case, it's gotten me this far, so it's not something that I'd like to or even need to turn my back on, because when I was creating for other people, nobody really gave a shit. So it wasn't until I started
Seems to be true.
true to myself,
Right.
that people started to respond.
I was just interviewing somebody yesterday for Blue, and that's exactly what they said, because they love lighthouses, and they were painting a lot of lighthouses, and they thought this is probably kind of corny after a while, like, the basic Michigan lighthouse, and they stopped, and then they said, wait a minute, I love lighthouses. I'm going to paint lighthouses, and her passion is in it, so it shows, right?
Yeah, because there's nothing worse than uninspired art. So,
Right,
you know,
right.
I think trying to cater to everyone else is the wrong direction.
Val, I'd like to ask you, what advice would you give to someone who's nervous about buying their first piece of art? Original piece of art can be expensive. I feel like this is a legacy type piece of art that you're going to eventually hand down to loved ones or people in your family. I have a lot of art in my family that was owned by parents and grandparents, and you think about the person when you look at the art. So I'm wondering what you think about that.
Well, not to be nervous. I think the main issue is the cost of it when you buy an original piece, right? That's, I think, what make them nervous.
Right.
But if they think about the generations is gonna go through, an original piece will add much more meaning to your space or yourself or your family. Than a non-original one. So I think they should see it as something more transcendent, something that is going to stick with them for life, and something that will mean much more.
Mm-hmm. And I'm walking around my house these days, taking paintings off the wall, writing up little things about the painting and where it came from, and taping it to the back. So my kids will know, right? Because I don't want that to go to Goodwill, right? Okay, so this next one's kind of funny, because when I hang up a piece of art in my house, almost every time, my resident man with the good eye will come and move it, or he'll say, as I'm putting the nail in the wall, that's not really the right place for that, because look at the shape of the wall that you're putting it on. So I want to ask you about that and making a house feel like a home. What do you do, like hallways, powder rooms, a painting over a sofa? Does it have to be horizontal like the sofa? Do you have to use odd numbers when you're doing a gallery wall? Are there any rules for any of this, Tony?
Jack, okay. So I thought it was a prank. I think that format can be important, like whether it's a landscape or a portrait format. But I don't think a long wall necessarily needs a horizontal format. If you can put like a portrait format and kind of flank it with 2 pieces on one side, another piece on the other side, I think it's whatever balance is appealing to the eye and not necessarily like this mathematical balance, which I think people really try and
Right.
use as a guideline.
Yeah.
So for me, if it's just pleasing to the eye, I think it makes for an easy space.
Yeah. Lori, how about like a long hallway?
Well, you have to be able to get far enough away from the work to
Which
see it.
wouldn't be good in one of my hallways because mine are narrow, so.
So you can have horizontal or vertical, but you want them to be a smaller size. I know with my work, it's great to go up close to it, but you have to get back to appreciate the size of the piece. So in hallways, I love to hang a lot of things, just so that you have things to stop and look
Smaller,
at each time.
yeah.
Yeah, and some of them are bigger, but the bigger things maybe are an abstraction.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it limits you. It's like it cuts your inspiration, right?
Right,
We usually artists.
Have you ever told anyone, no, I don't do art to fit the space?
Yeah,
Tony?
I've turned down a lot of commissions over the
Right.
years. It just depends how adamant they are. If they're willing to understand that I think art is an opportunity to ensure that a space isn't too matchy as well. So,
Right.
to maybe take a color and sort of infuse it into a painting so that it doesn't look completely out of place is one thing. But yeah, I've had to turn down commissions from people that were too adamant about what they.
And when you say out of place, that makes me think of how people with contemporary homes or modern homes think that they have to have modern art and vice versa. How do you feel about the mix of bringing in traditional gilded frames or whatever inside a modern home?
Well, I love a mix of like primitive and ultra modern. I think it really adds interest. I love the contrast of that. That's one thing I love to do.
Yeah. How about you, Lori?
Well, I'd like to go back to those last 2 questions, and that is that, with Boz and I being photographers, scale is something that we can adapt.
Oh, right.
So as long as, like, if you have a horizontal piece, you could make it larger for your space or smaller with photography.
Right.
Right? As long as you keep to the integrity of the original image. So we can play with that. And, but I think that you should fall in love with the piece first. And are you, when you're sitting on your couch or you come into your room, you love that piece and it triggers some emotion in you, and that's why you should buy the piece. Or I've also said, get the artwork first, the furniture later, because that is something that's going to be with you that you really adore for a reason,
Yeah.
and that you want people to see what is inside of you and what you have been drawn to that piece
Right.
of artwork for.
It makes me think of a photo I bought that was an old chippy red picnic table in Hamtramck in a backyard. I don't have any connection to Hamtramck. I mean, my husband's Polish, but I just,
Something drew you to it.
it just drew
right?
me to
Yeah.
it. Maybe it was the pop of red or something, and I just love it. And I don't know why. It's been with me wherever I've lived.
And I worked in the gallery business for years and then had my own gallery. So you do bring other work to people's homes, and very often we would leave things for people to try. That's really great. So if you can bring it home, live with it, and see how it feels in your space, that's a really good thing. And also, I've heard very many times, we don't have a wall space, which is one of the reasons that led me to take my work outdoors. Also, photography used to be matted and framed, and I needed these things to just burst out and be large, and wanted them to be back in the garden. So my work on aluminum can be placed outside year-round, which I love, seeing it in the setting,
Elements,
maybe where
yeah.
that
Yeah.
plant came from. And then in the winter, you're still seeing those hydrangeas lit by a solar light or something in the
Right.
snow.
Well, you talked about emotional response. Have you ever done a painting, delivered it, or had the client come to you, or a photo, and there's such an emotional response, like they're crying? I've cried when I've hired someone to paint my sons 2 or 3 times, and when I get it, it's like, how did you ever reach deep down into the soul of these 2 individuals and be able to convey it, you know? Have you ever seen any emotional responses from people, clients?
I mean, I have. I did a mural at Bistro 82 in Royal Oak.
Bistro 82?
Yeah, it was a Restaurant of the Year, Ours Restaurant of the Year, a while back.
Yeah.
And I did this huge mural, and a couple years later, a couple came to me interested in purchasing something from me. And I didn't realize they had an attachment to this mural because they were married in front of it. So they
Oh,
wanted to purchase
wow.
the art that was, and actually it's in the showroom today, in the Scavellini
Oh, that's
showroom. So
neat.
that was really a surprise to me, and they really had an attachment to it because it was their
It's
special.
kind of what
special
art is
moment.
about, isn't
Yeah,
it? Just
right.
changing or creating an emotion from someone.
Yep.
What about you, Tony?
Yeah, it's happened a lot of times. It's interesting because as you were mentioning it, it almost doesn't feel comfortable to
Talk about it. I know.
because it's something so personal. But yeah, it's happened quite a few times, and certain clients have wanted
Kleenex box?
to
No.
view it. Well, they wanted to view it in private,
Yeah.
you know, without me there, and then others have just
Oh.
didn't realize that they were going to have such a emotional response to it. But it's kind of an honor, and it's sort of sacred, actually.
Have you ever walked into a house with not very much art, and how does it make you feel? I think of The Truman Show or Stepford Wives. It's kind of like being on a street with no trees, right? Or no bird song in the backyard.
It's just
What's-
sad.
What?
It
It's
makes
sad?
you feel sad
Yeah,
and empty.
definitely. Extremely kind of makes you almost uncomfortable. I think art actually warms up a home. It makes a house a home, for sure. Let me ask you about any types of, well, let me ask about matting, because you brought that up. Do you mat? And if so, why or why not? Do you mat your photos? Do you mat your acrylics or your paintings? Tony's are probably on canvases that maybe wrap around the side, so you don't need to frame, or do you frame?
No, I frame all my stuff. I do have some reproductions that are canvas wraps, but to me, you know, I mean, I think this is just for me and my work, so I don't knock anybody that doesn't frame, but I think there's a psychological correlation between, we
frame.
go to museums and we go to galleries and we see works that are framed, and I think along the way we sort of subconsciously correlate that with a level of importance, you know.
Right.
And when I wasn't framing my work, I wasn't really selling a lot of it. And then I had a mutual artist that I worked with, and he just pulled me off to the side and he said, "Listen, I'm going to give you the best advice." He said, "Always frame your works."
Wow.
And he talked about the subconscious, importance of it. And so I started framing my pieces, and it made such a huge difference in sales because people then could imagine it on a wall, and so I don't know, it's worked really well for me. But
Different
I do not-
styles of frames, gilded or simple black
Yeah,
aluminum.
I mostly do gilded. Like I've been fortunate enough that my work can go into more contemporary frames as well and still feel right. But I'm a big advocate of framing works.
What about for photography?
Well, I frame work pretty much because I have to. I mean, it does add a level of polish to the art, and I do enjoy it. I do not mat, though. I just print with a border, so that way
Okay.
the mat's kind of built in visually.
Is that because the mat takes away from?
For me, it's simpler. I just think it's prettier. I do print on aluminum also, but I was just talking to my husband last night about experimenting with printing on canvas that's unstretched. So I think that could be a nice new thing to do.
Yeah, mine's framed to the edge, so it is finished. You've got to have it finished, I think.
Yeah.
And I just started printing on glass, which is really interesting because that can go outside and has a whole different feeling to it, but keeping with the integrity of the work. But I think you really need to finish the piece.
What about you, Val?
I usually don't frame them.
So is it a wraparound then?
It's a
kind of?
wraparound, and many times I do continue the painting around.
Oh, yeah.
Many times, but I
So
love what you
variety
said,
is the spice, right?
it might be depending on the piece that you
Yeah.
want to do, but yeah.
I'm sure you're all going to be thinking about this now with your art. Framing, not framing, matting, on glass. It's so interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Have you noticed any trends in what collectors or homeowners are looking for? I would think, just from the trends I'm seeing in the art and journalism world, quiet, softer, more nature. I just think the world is a little crazy right now, between the wildfires and the wild everything else that's going on. Goodness, I'd really like to look at calming work. However, we all need energy too, right? Because we get our energy from art. Do you see any trends, or is it just what the people like, what you're feeling, what you like?
Well, I did a little research last night on trends for 25, and one trend was very large art, which is good for us.
Right.
Oh, neat. Large art. Love it, love
And
it.
dramatic abstracts and textures.
Oh,
So that's what I
textures.
found,
That
yeah,
makes
which
sense.
is interesting, yeah.
What are you seeing? Lori, Tony, Val? Is it more like what you feel versus what the trends are? I know sometimes I wake up and I'll say, I have got to capture this bird in 5 positions if it kills me. It's just a weird thing that takes over. Like, do you get that way? Like, you
Well,
see a new flower or a new wildflower, or I'm going to say
yeah.
weeds, because weeds are pretty too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everything that I shoot, I cut and bring back into the studio. So I have, scissors with me. But
Oh,
I kind of call
scissors.
the process dancing with plants because I never know once I get it into the studio and it's dark and I've got music on, what reaction I'm going to have to that plant. So I'm not thinking about trends or colors or anything. I'm just thinking about the little details that are fun to have
Right.
that dance with.
Do you have like thoughts in your brains constantly about where you want to go next? Where do you get your inspiration from day to day? Could it just be looking at your coffee cup, or I'm going down to the Michigan Central Station today and I'm going to get some inspiration?
Life. Hi, there it is. Yeah, it's the bottom. Everyday life, everyday things. Like, for me, I got it a lot into color. Something colorful always brings me a shirt. A leopard shirt is like, that's
Oh,
so
yeah,
cool. I
leopard
want to do
shirt,
something
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Or, everyday stuff.
That's neat. What about you, Tony?
Check. Okay. I think really for me, inspiration comes at the craziest times and odd moments. Sometimes it's just a moment of silence, but I think that really, and this is going to sound so cliche, and I don't mean it to be, but really this is how I feel about it. I think creativity is kind of like a state of mind. So if your tentacles are always up and it's like learning to observe, and it almost, it almost needs to start out as like a discipline. And then, when I hear that artists are in a rut or they're having a creative block, I don't deal with that a lot because I'm always just so aware of
Your surroundings.
I might not hear everything everyone's saying to me, but I'm always seeing what's out there, and I'm sort of just programmed to do that now.
Now, in the last 2 years, what have you created that you said to yourself, because artists are often not happy with their work 100%, like, oh, I could have lit this a little differently, or I should have had this out of focus here, but more here. Maybe I should have echoed that red somewhere else in the painting. Most of the time, they don't even want to look at their art for a while after it's done. But there is a work that you are like, whoa, I really hit it this time, out of the park. Can you think of a painting that you did or a photo in the last 2 years where you were like standing back, just going, yep, this is it? Tony, you're nodding.
Yeah, because for me, when a piece is complete and I haven't, especially if I haven't seen it for a month or 6 months, oftentimes I'll see it and it tricks my brain because I'm like, oh my God, I love the way he did, and I'm like, wait, that was you, and
Oh,
like,
that's funny.
it really happens to
That's
me so
you.
often, or I'm like, I love this color, and I'm like, what? And then I think, shit, if I had to mix that color, I wouldn't even know how to, or I don't know if I could do that today.
Right.
But what I've found after maybe 1,000 paintings is that you're not present for the greatest moments in a piece. And if you're thinking about it and you're like, damn, how do I achieve this? How do I get this color? Like, how do I make this? And you're thinking about it, you're kind of losing at that moment. And it's
So
those
don't
moments that
overthink
you're
it. You're
almost
not
absent
overthinking.
for them.
Yeah.
And then that's why I can revisit them and think, like, it's almost like I'm observing them as if it wasn't me anymore.
Oh, wow. That's quite an experience.
Yeah.
Stepping out of yourself and kind of observing it and then saying, that's my work.
It's almost like I have to be reminded that I
Yeah.
did it, but
Yeah.
not on every piece. But I'm just
Yeah.
saying on certain
Oh,
moments of a piece.
Val?
Oh, sorry.
No, I haven't felt like that lately in a few years. Now I'm not a full-time artist. So I do my art most on commissions or on the side. And when I have time and inspiration. So, which for me doesn't come as easy. But what was the question?
Something you're super happy with.
But yes, I've had, I'm usually very critical of my art, and I feel like there's always something.
How do you feel about that fox up there?
Oh, that fox. I feel happy about that fox, because that was something I did for a vignette, especially for that, and I just did it like overnight. Let's just do something fun.
That's fun.
But when I see it closer, like I can see, oh, it's missing this, it needs that. But it was something I did.
Yeah.
But it's another piece that I do really look back at it, and it's on one of my friend's house, and that I can see like, oh my God, I nailed that one.
Oh,
But
yeah, you
for me,
nailed
it's
it.
been
That's
one.
cool.
It's one of the dancers there.
Oh, one of the dancers. Neat.
Yeah.
How about you, Lori?
Well, after 35 years of having a studio in Birmingham, I just moved the whole operation home. So, and I've built this studio that'll be by my gardens and had to go through and touch almost every piece I've done since college. So that was, like you say, I'm just like, I opened this drawer, I'm like, wow, you can see kind of the growth and the change of your work. And also, like, I got goosebumps. And it's just like, I love what I do. And this was a reminder to just be that just everything, and especially seeing work that I've done a long time ago or from when I've traveled, and that really holding a place in my memory. And also seeing a piece in someone's home how they love it.
Oh, yeah.
That really, really is
Yeah.
important.
Boswell, are your Parisian pieces like just knock you out?
I love all the Parisian work, but I really, really gravitate toward my fashion images and my fashion portraits. For me, it's just a moment in time, and photography is the only medium that can really do that. So for me, that playing with time is really fascinating, and I'm really drawn to beauty and fashion. So I can't
That's
pick
great.
one thing, but
No,
that's kind of...
but yeah, fashion. Well, I want to ask you about AI. Everyone knows what AI is, right? I was with someone the other day and he had a hearing aid in and he goes, "This thing's unreal. I mean, it's like AI." And I'm like, no, that's technology. But AI is a step beyond that, isn't it? And any comments whatsoever? I follow some pages on Facebook, and there's a lot of fake stuff going out there. There's combinations of things. People can take your art and do something with it. People are putting beautiful Michigan shots on that have big mountains in the background. We only have a few of those, and they're way up north. And so people are commenting, "Oh no, this is not Michigan. Get this person off this site." There's just all this AI stuff. Do you try to ignore it? Are you upset about it? Do you embrace some of the positives?
Well, I actually am a commercial photographer, and I do use AI a little bit in my work just to expand a canvas. It's something I could do by hand in the past, but it's very time-consuming. It doesn't always work great, but that's the limitation for me of using that technology. I think that people use it very irresponsibly, and I'm sure we all agree it's kind of strange and not great in most ways.
Well, art is going to go where it's going to go. And technology is a new medium. I mean, I'm sure Salvador Dali was looked at as AI in his time.
Right.
Things are going to expand. And although I'm completely against appropriating other people's images, which we all have to be careful about, I think that the medium is just going to expand.
How about you, Val?
I don't know how much AI will really interfere on original art.
Right.
I guess it will depend on the client, the purchaser, what to pay attention and to what they're getting and what they really want. Many people really like to meet the artists, and that's more than any printed AI stuff out there. But
Right.
I don't know.
Tony, any thoughts?
Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with it. When it first came out, I was really threatened by it, but as it kind of found its place, and I know it gets better and better, but I think it kind of settled into this place that's really different in from original art. So I'm so fascinated by it. I see some stuff that I'm just like, well, am I happier that I seen this than if I had not seen it? And I'm glad I got to view it, and I've just been intrigued by it. But it's also kind of pushed me to be better, and not that I made that conscious decision like, oh, I got to be better because of AI, but it's really fascinating. So it's hard not to. I find myself trying to outthink it, and I think maybe my work may be growing from that experience.
Now, if people want to see your works in Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or whatever, are they able to? You all have Instagram accounts, so people could search your names. Now, do you like promoting yourself? Yes, because my husband will say, do you think when French's Mustard comes out with a new brand, they don't talk about it and get it out there? You have to. You're marketing yourself. But does it feel a little odd? Like you're putting yourself out too much? How does social media help you with your clients? Boswell?
Well, it just gives you exposure. I'm a really kind of a private person. I don't post any personal stuff on the internet. I post about my work, and for me, it just makes people aware of what I'm doing, and it brings people to me and clients. So I think it's a great tool that we didn't have. I'm a very solitary person in a lot of ways, so it gives me that reach that nothing else really would.
And do you get inspired by others' works?
Oh, of course, every day.
Yeah,
Everything
yeah.
around me, sure.
I mean, I think of Monet, Van Gogh, the photographers, Alfred, what's his name? Stieglitz, that they were operating in a tunnel pretty much, right? And then we're out here and we're looking and we're getting inspired, and it's just so different. Lori, what about you? You have an Instagram.
I do. I don't have time to post a lot. And so I really find that as far as marketing, my email list is like my best way to reach all my clients, and really just the personal relationships that I try to get by, being places, doing talks, speaking, that is a more intimate relationship.
Right.
But I love looking at
Yeah.
all social
Oh,
media
yeah.
and getting inspired by
Do
it,
you
for
put
sure.
prices on your works when you post, or do people message you, or how do they find out about sizes and prices and things? If they want to bring a Tony Roko into their home, should they go to do you have a website?
Yeah, I don't normally publish. I mean, I did for a little while publish prices, but
yeah.
Normally I think that serious buyers and collectors inquire. So I think that posting prices is almost it's like almost for everybody that doesn't buy, like.
Right. And I'm looking at your people right now. Are these based on people you know, or yourself, or your observations as you sit in a pub late at night? Some of these are looking kind of that feel.
I mean, I think the one that passed was alter egos of me and Miss Mimi over here with the beret.
Oh, cool.
That one there, yeah. And but a lot of times they for me, I get the spark of an inspiration from somebody I see, whether it's in an advertisement or an old, French poster or something. And that was what I was referring to in terms of the inspiration, it just takes the spark, and then you can switch directions. And, I've started out thinking I was going to paint a man, for example, and then I make a mark and I'm like, wait, does that look like a woman? And then the next thing I know, I'm painting a woman. So I think letting go of the wheel is kind of important, and just and that the spark of inspiration is the most important thing.
Does anybody have questions for any of the participants here on the panel today? Because we may not have covered everything about bringing art into the home. Questions? Yes, sir? Did you set out with a style and say, I'm doing botanical?
No.
And did you say, I am going to shoot the heck out of Paris?
Well, yeah.
I think that there are moments that change your life and change your direction.
Things
your
that change your life,
So
yep.
Me traveling to Paris for the first time changed the way I
Changed
see
your
the
life
world.
because of the lighting and the feel.
Yeah, well, it's just the
Boom.
feeling.
It's
the
like
feeling
boom, you've
of
turned the
Paris.
corner into a new chapter.
Yep.
What about you, Lori?
Well, going through my studio, I found all this great work that I had from traveling that is not, botanical, a lot of architecture. And I did live in Paris for a while right out of college. So, there's all those things are still there. And it's what you feel like doing at that period of time. And so I've always kind of had a botanical side, but also I love abstract architecture. And so it's, it grows.
It grows over time, right?
Right. It can grow and change, I think.
Yeah. Tony?
I have it's an interesting story to me. And
Well, how long have you been painting, Tony?
For 35 years, 30 years or so.
Okay.
And I had an interesting moment, and I'm going to refer to Mimi again. But I was painting at Ford Motor Company, and it was really appropriate that like a lot of pieces were of Henry Ford, and it was like photo real. And I had given, I'd kind of felt really uninspired and stopped doing that for them, and went back. I went back to coveralls. I went back to working, and I had met Mimi, coincidentally enough, who's here today. That was 20 years ago, and she said, "Didn't you say that you used to paint? Aren't you a painter?" And I said, "Yeah." She's like, "So why don't you paint?" And I had given it up for a few years, and I said, "Well, like." I was painting black and white, and it was so boring, and it was all photo real, and I want to use colors, and and she said, "So why don't you?" And I said, "Well, because nobody would understand, and I would want to put all these colors in people's faces." And she said, "So why do you feel like you need to? Why do you need to? You feel like you need to like show people? Why don't you?" And so I had all these excuses of why I couldn't do it, and then one day I came home, and she had dug my art materials out, and she said, that style you were talking about?" And I was like, and she's like, "Tonight I'm going to cook, you're going to do that. You're going to close the door, the bedroom, and when you're done, you don't have to show anybody." And it was like somebody giving me that permission to just
Ooh.
fail.
Wow.
And like with no pressure of, she's like, "I don't want to see it. You don't have to show anybody." And of course, 40 minutes later, I was running out of the room going, "Look at this, you got to see this, oh my God." But it was just giving me that permission to fail and to experiment, and no pressure to show anybody. So that was my aha moment, and there she is.
And that's amazing. Wow. Talk about
Thank
growth
you.
and change. Yeah. Thank you. Val, changing styles over time.
well,
the day
yeah,
you
I think-
decided to start.
It was for me, was not a decision. It was like part of me.
Oh, it's not your decision, but it's
not
part
like-
of you.
like my
Yeah.
decision. I'm a designer, an architecture. Through my career, I started going more into the painting and the arts as a complement to my career. And I think it's been with me throughout my life since young. And I've never went to it as I actually, it's hard to describe if I have a style or not. I obviously do, but it's never been a conscious thing. And I think it's been evolving too. It's evolved. But for me, it's just always been more like on the side. Yeah.
Interesting. Any others? Well, I think we have to wrap up. So thanks everybody for coming. I really appreciate it, as do the panelists. You'll see them in showrooms today. You'll see their work around. Enjoy the walk. I think it sounds fabulous. There are Michigan Blue magazines out there if you haven't got one. It's also online. It's about everything going on in the state of Michigan that's waterfront, because we have a lot of water. And there's always an art article in the magazine, at least one. So if you're into art, you might want to check that magazine out. Thank you so very much, panelists. This was great. I'm inspired.